Well, after the New York Post censorship, they're still locked out of Twitter, by the way. There's growing concern over big tech platforms and their power to limit free speech. Twitter and Facebook's attempts to limit sharing of that New York Post article about Hunter Biden has fueled Republican plans to vote on subpoenas that would force testimony from the CEOs of both Twitter and Facebook. Joining us now is Jeff Lax, a law professor at the City University of New York. Also our panel of the day, Joe and Victoria, who are also legal experts. So this is going to be great here. We're going to really get to the bottom of this here. Jeff, we'll start with you. Realistically, sure. Where are we at with this censorship? We're seeing it come from these platforms like Twitter and Facebook, which so many Americans use on a daily basis, and yet we've learned, based on what sort of content is trying to be shared online, it could be censored. I mean, how much freedom do these platforms really have in regards to what they can and cannot censor?
Yeah, it's actually a really big misconception nowadays that, first of all, this statute, the Communications Decency Act, which President Trump has popularized now as Section 230, it's important to recognize it was enacted well before any of these social media companies were ever even invented. The statute was enacted in 1996, even before the first generation of social media. So they had no idea at that time the power that these social media companies would have and the way that communication would be centralized. But the most common misconception, I think, with this particular statute is that it's actually meant to increase and encourage free speech. So, for example, what they did to the New York Post is not allowed under the statute. And one of the misconceptions is that what they did to the Post, which is restricting the Post's investigative reporting, is broadly allowed. That's actually not true. The point of the statute is to open up free speech, and specifically it talks about political discourse, encouraging political discourse. And the statute specifically says that there are certain kinds of speech you're allowed to restrict. And it gives you, let me read to you the kind of how strong the language is. It actually says obscene, lewd, lascivious, filthy, excessively violent content. That is not at all, obviously, what the New York Post did, which was investigative reporting.